Hi everyone, and welcome to this video session that's going to be around creating a 1-point perspective grid, which is your exercise 8. The first point there is following the class instruction, create a 1-point perspective grid template on A3 paper. So I've got some A3 paper set up on my little drawing board here on my kitchen bench. So I'm hoping you can all see that okay. I've got to sort of maneuver my drawing equipment and myself around the camera. So I'm hoping that you can see that okay. Just want to quickly have a look at our plan. I'm sorry about the lighting too, if it is a little contrasty. The rain clouds have just come in and I have to have the lights on inside here, so things are a little contrasty. So with your boutique hotel room, you've got this big main bedroom space here, and you'll notice that this wall along the back here is 6100, so that's just over 6 meters, that wall. So that wall is the most likely, or in this space you'll have a bed somewhere. A lot of students in the past have put their bed on that wall. So what we're going to do is create a 1-point perspective grid where we're looking, it's as if we're standing in the room somewhere along here in the walkway, and we're looking at that wall as it's projected in elevation. That's what we're working towards. So I'll put that aside. So the first thing we want to do is to create a room that is, I'll just bring that back for a minute, 6 meters long, because our wall is just over 6 meters long. For ease of making this grid, we're going to make it just 6 meters. 100 is not that much. And from your elevations, you can see that it is, the height of the ceiling is 2700 there. So we're going to make it, we're going to round that up to 3 meters as well. So the first thing I would do is I want this central, what we call, you might remember, the picture plane. So this part of our grid here, to be around about in the middle of my space. So it's going to sit in there somewhere. So I'm just going to do myself a line there. I'm not sure if you can see that at this point. I'm going to do it quite hard. You guys might need to do it quite as hard as I'm doing. Once I've got a line, I'm going to work at 1 to 50. So that's with my little triangular ruler. I'm working at 1 to 50, and I'm going to mark off 6 meters. And I'm going to mark at every meter mark along there. I've got a little dot. So now I can go straight up. And you can see how much easier it is if you've got a T-square to do this. If I didn't have a T-square and I'm trying to do it, it's possible, but it just makes things a little more time consuming, a little trickier to get accurate. And accuracy is the key with all of this, as you will know from any of the technical drawing that you've done in the past. So I've just done I've come up 3 meters there, and now I'm going to grid off this at every meter mark there that I've got to get my 6 by 3. So this is 6 meters long by 3 meters high. So that's what I've got so far. The next thing that you'll need to do is to work out a horizon line. And you might remember that we create a horizon line around 1700 high, averaging it out with people. So if I put a little mark at 1700, 15, 16, 17, that becomes my horizon line, 1700. On that horizon line, I want to place a vanishing point. So my vanishing point is really where I'm standing in the room. So if you think that we've just drawn this wall in elevation here, and now I want to position myself where I'm standing in the room. If I stand sort of more in this, aligned with this area, I'm going to see, I'm going to see more of the window area that is on the right. So if I've got my vanishing point to the left, I'm going to see more of the right side of the room. And if I've got my vanishing point over this side of the room, I'm going to see more of that. Because I have windows here, I want to see more of the window area, and that will be important for your perspective, that you see the window area. So I'm going to put my vanishing point on the to the left of center quite significantly. So I'm going to see more of this side of the room rather than this side of the room. Once I've got that vanishing point in, I can then establish the corners of the space. So I'm lining up my vanishing point with the corner of the room and drawing a line that way. I'm lining up my vanishing point with the bottom right hand corner, drawing that direction, and then I'm doing the same for the other two corners. So you can see that the room now, I've got more foreshortening here, and I've got quite a lot of emphasis on that window area, which is where you're going to draw your curtains for deck pracs. So it's advantageous to have that all, our focus on that one. So now that I have this room established, what I need to do is get some more perspective lines coming, and remember, everything is going to come back to this vanishing point. So I'm going to line up the vanishing point with this one, and I'm going to go all the way around the whole space. So there you see, I've done those lines radiating out from that vanishing point on the two walls, the ceiling and the floor, all the way around. Now what I need to do is establish some lines on the floor, and this becomes a little bit more, less of a science and a little bit more abstract. We kind of have to feel this. I'm just going to extend my horizon line there a little bit. Now this, like I just said, is nothing, there's no science to this. There's a couple of general rules that sometimes work, sometimes don't. But one of these rules is that this picture plane, which is this surface here, which is your elevation, I guess, that we can put a point on the horizon line that is 2/3 of the picture plane. So if our picture plane is 6 meters long, 2/3 of that is 4 meters. So what I'm going to do is just measure out 4 meters. I'm still using 1 to 50 as my scale. And that becomes a little measuring point stuck out here in space. And what that does is gives me, if I line that measuring point up with the corner here and project a line into the space there, it gives me a set of lines. Now, I feel it's too steep. So these are intersecting with these lines at too far away. I want it narrower. So what I'm going to do is if I take that point out even further past that, I think I need it to be sort of, I'm going to try out there so you can see what I mean. It's quite abstract. It depends on where this vanishing point is, I think, how this works. So if I take that out there and get this line here much more shallow, then I'm hitting there 1, 2, 3. I'm just going to extend it a little bit. 4. I like that more. I might have to also extend this line here a little bit. So also that nice long T-square can be very helpful to get these long lines that we need. So that one hits all the way out here. So I like that more. You know, I could even go a little further out. And I might even just do that. I'm going to go right to the edge of my page here. So you guys might like to do the same. I'm going to do that now. So it's just a little further in. I'm going to run with that one. What we do now is where these lines intersect. I know it's a bit confusing because I've got a few, but where they're touching, that's where I do a horizontal line. So if I go to that spot there, I'm going all the way over to the walls where the floor and the wall meet. Then it's that top one there. Then it's this one here. Then this one. And then finally this one. Now, each of these squares represents 1 meter square, right? So that's 1 by 1 by 1 by 1. And so the same happens with this projection on the floor. So as the squares get closer towards us, they get bigger. So I'm quite happy with how that's looking. You might need to come back in and extend a few of your lines. So like this one here, I need to just extend that to meet up. Now you'll notice that we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So our space is only just over 5 meters long. So if we have 5 coming this way towards us, that's plenty. So if you're mucking around with this measuring point, do you want to just make it so you at least get 5 squares in coming this way to do our space. Once you have that established, the rest is pretty easy. And if you've been accurate and you've got a nice sharp pencil, what should happen is when we take these, so I'm going from all these points of intersection now, I'm going directly straight up till I meet the ceiling there. I do that for all of these points of intersection. And I do the same on the other side. The more accurate you are, the better chance you have of getting this right at this next point. So I'm just going to extend this line as well. And that kind of actually goes just off the page. That's okay if that happens to you. In fact, it can be quite advantageous. So now, technically, these 2 points at the back here should meet in a horizontal line, which mine do, which means I've been pretty accurate in lining all my points of intersection up. Now this last one just kind of heads off the page a little, which is okay. We can, it's as if we're standing in the space a bit more rather than outside the space and looking in at the whole thing. So I'm not dissatisfied with that. I could just extend these a little. And that really there is the end of the space. So that's the first part in pencil, my grid in pencil. I'm just going to pause the video there. Hi, welcome back. I just had a little rewatch of that. I hope that that's going to be okay for you to understand. We're going to run with it at this point anyway. So for the next part of the process, what I'm going to do is I'm going to trace over this grid onto tracing paper. So it's I've got this tracing paper from Eckersley's that is 95 GSM. So that's always handy to have. I'm going to just move it a little bit because I'm just off the page here a little. I'm going to just move it over a bit so my grid is a little bit more centrally placed. And once again, I'm going to be taping this onto my surface. So now to line this up nice and straight, I can just line it up with the paper underneath rather than, I didn't do that very well, rather than using my T-square to get that nice straight edge, just using the paper. So the reason why we do this is to make a master copy, a master grid that I can keep in my folio and photocopy as I need to use it. Now, you guys might not have an A3 printer at home or access to a photocopier, so you might not want to do this tracing bit onto tracing paper. What you could do is instead just go over the paper version with felt tip pen like I'm doing. But what I want to do is create a little bit of emphasis on the on this back picture plane, because, and it might be, you might be noticing too, it looks a little confusing to me, you know, especially some of these long vertical lines are getting in the way of me understanding the space. So if you are doing this step onto tracing paper, just make sure that you let your pen dry in between, because it will smudge. So I'm trying to go quite quickly so you're not watching this video for months on end, but I also don't want to smudge it if I can possibly help it. So that's the back room. So I'm using a 0.5 pen here. The reason why I'm doing that, I just want to make this part of my drawing, that back wall, the picture plane, and also the corners of the space. So that's these lines here. I want them to be a little darker, a little heavier weight than the rest, just so it really defines the space a little more clearly for me. I will use a 3 on the rest of the drawing. So, and yeah, you can see that you need really good lighting. I'm struggling a bit there now as this lighting's changing, but make sure you've got yourself some fabulous lighting. And don't do what I just did then, which was put the angle of my pen in the wrong direction. I've got a bit of a hump there. I'm going to push on with it though, given the time constraints of the video. So I've just switched over to a 0.3, so these lines will be a little lighter. What's important that you're accurate from the lines that you drew before. Pop in your horizon line. It's really handy to have that there. I'm going to pop it in all the way along. I'm going to mark my vanishing point on that horizon line. You don't need to put a VP or anything. We know what it is. And now I'm going to continue that all the way around. I might actually use this one. It might be a little easier. Grid, and that it is at 1 to 50. The scale is important to know what scale it's at. What I haven't marked in is this the measuring point and that line. Don't need that. So I've just got myself a beautiful grid there that I can photocopy, and that is the first part of the exercise.